Once again, it's time to bring in my colleague and social media reporter, Mariama. Take it away again, Mariama.
Well, thanks, Shaka. As we've been discussing, following 30 years of war for independence by the Eritrean Liberation Front, on May 24, 1991, Eritrea did regain her political independence from Ethiopia. As the East African nation celebrates her 25th anniversary, Eritreans around the world are reflecting on the aspirations and dreams of those who fought for independence. Well, this leads us to our question of the week, which asks, what happened to the Eritrean citizens' vision of utopia, and can it still be reached? But before we begin, I'd like to thank everyone for using all our social media platforms to communicate to us. And another reminder that we are indeed tweeting live today. Just use the hashtag VOA Eritrea Anniversary. And if you haven't yet, do follow us on Twitter at VOA Shaka. And speaking of it, let's go to a tweet from Yafet Z, who tweets that despite all the efforts to undermine the country, Eritrea is still on track. The nation has said no to NGOs and has managed to feed itself. Well, now to a comment from a Facebook fan. His name is Obuoba, I should say, rather, Obibini, from Ghana, who writes, I am against the so-called independence celebration in Africa because we are free from birth, and it's a waste of time and money. To me, Eritrea's own is rational. But under Afwerki, the allegations of corruption, abuse of power, and humanity seems neglected by the African Union. National coexistence is very high, but development is very down in Ethiopia. God bless Africa, he writes. Well, very interesting comments, Shaka, and guess your take on these.
Very interesting indeed. Simon, could you please react to that?
Well, there were a number of things that were said there. I do think that celebrating independence is an important thing. Humans are ritualistic creatures, social creatures, and I think that it's important to celebrate things that are important to us. We go to a friend's funeral if they pass away as a show of respect, and similarly, we have Martyrs' Day, we have Independence Day, different things to show respect for things that we care about. And so I think it's important to do that and to show that. It shouldn't be the only thing that you do, however. But I also should say, going back to some of the comments that were said, over Twitter, as well as from my compatriots here, I want to sort of touch on this issue of education, national service, development, because they're all interrelated. It's very important to understand that when it comes to national service, we have to distinguish national service from people being called back to duty in the reserve forces of Eritrea. So when they complete their 18 months, what then happens is that they are often called back to duty because of the extended, protracted war of attrition. When I say war of attrition, I mean a war until the death, literally, between the ruling governments in both countries. The idea is to, it's a war until the death. And so what happens is that you have mobilization of a country of 3.5 million people to 4 million. The numbers are still being debated, but very small population against an Ethiopian population that's almost 100 million people. So if you can imagine, if a country, which to this very day, Ethiopia is very bellicose and actually continues to attack Ethiopia or Eritrea along the border, you can imagine in this country of 3.5 million people what they'll have to do, the sacrifices that will had to be made in order to defend and protect the nation. And so when people go into their careers, they have these aspirations and all these things. It's so unfortunate how many dreams and how many aspirations are sometimes put on hold because of this ongoing struggle.
It's
an ongoing struggle. And so just the one point I want to make is that this is a violation of international law. There are no ifs, ands, or buts here. It's very clear what needs to be done. The international community just fails to play its role in ending this crisis. It was determined by international arbitration exactly what should be done with this border dispute, which is no longer a dispute, that Bademe, the casus belli of the war, was awarded to Eritrea. And Ethiopia continues to occupy this region, even though the decision that was given was final and binding by the consent of both parties prior to that arbitration. So there's no question about this. The international community and everyone should basically allow justice to happen here, and so both countries and their peoples can go about living their lives.
Let me ask you a very simple question, Simon. Have you ever participated in the Eritrean National Service?
I did go back and participate in my civil service over the past couple of years while I was there, and I'm actually after the completion of my studies, which I recently have completed, I'm going back there to continue this work. And so, yes, I have taken part in service in Eritrea.
I gather, of course, that you are a physician, and as you heard earlier, Professor Gaim says, in fact, physicians are in very, very short supply.
And he is correct in saying that they are in short supply. But you have to understand that Eritrea was incredibly in short. We were incredibly in short supply upon independence. If you look at the numbers in terms of pediatricians, number of surgeons, you could count them less than the number on your finger, on your hands, excuse me, for the number of pediatricians, the number of surgeons and obstetricians. And so the thing is that we needed to get those numbers up. And so there was the medical school there, postgraduate program, all these different things that were put into place such that we could train professionals to serve the Eritrean people in the healthcare sector, to take care of the ill, to improve their condition. And as we've seen with the Millennium Development Goals, Eritrea has made tremendous progress. But again, we don't settle for this. We have a long ways to go. Everyone understands this. And
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mariama, do we have more audience reaction, please?
Yes, we do, and we'll move on to another one, this time from Mohammed Ahmed Mansour from Monrovia in Liberia, who writes that utopia is politically necessary even for those who do not desire an alternative society at all. Thoughtful politics depends upon debate, and without someone or something to disagree with, there is no meaningful dialogue, only an echo chamber. Let's take a look at another post, this time from Akwasi Marfo in Ghana, who writes, African leaders are greedy. Why are they always wanting to be in power for so many years? I, for one, I am against democracy because of how some presidents have abused it. Well, Shaka, quite a different point of views this time around. Your thought, and Shaka and guests, of course.
Very interesting indeed. Professor Gaim, your reaction, please.
I agree with those who are saying African leaders are greedy, and once they are in power, they never want to leave. There are very few who have left. You heard our president saying that I have no intention of leaving power, and he has been in power. The thing with him is actually, unlike many other African leaders, he exercises absolute monopoly of power, and the people around him don't exercise any kind of power. It's only at it's him who decides everything in the country, and the state our country is in is because of that. Simon was saying there is shortage of supply of medically qualified experts, surgeons, and so on. You know, Eritrea is a small country, but in comparison to its size, it has lots of educated people. And after independence, many Eritreans who are highly qualified in different fields went back to Eritrea to participate in the process of nation building and reconstruction. But most of them did not stay long because they were rejected. The government, which took over power after fighting for many years, in the field did not want expats to join them. They wanted to monopolize everything. And those who went back enthusiastically to participate in nation building voted with their feet because they were poorly received. And the level of human rights violations were so intolerable. Whoever has a sense of respect for the sanctity of rule of law and the human life would not be able to tolerate what goes on in the country. The founding fathers of the national liberation struggle have been languishing in an unknown place since 2001. The journalists who were detained in September 2001, nobody has heard from them. Many of them are still held in incommunicado detention. These people have relatives, have children, have mothers, wives, grandmothers, and they sacrificed all their lives to fight for independence. And when independence came, it consumed them. This is not what our people fought for. And I think instead of celebrating the glorious past, we need to ask ourselves, what has gone wrong with us, with our country? And what do we need to do to rectify the disasters that have engulfed our country? And it is only after we begin to ask questions, soul-searching questions, that we will be able to talk about solutions. The people who are in power have no intention of relinquishing power. They are using different pretexts to tell us that there is no room for democracy, there is no room for change, there is no room for accommodating those who have a different opinion. Their approach has been underpinned from the outset, my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. And that's why so many Eritreans are voting with their feet. And the country is hollowed out of its content. And that is a very, very sad thing to see, a country undergoing through such kind of difficulties and suffering, which are avoidable. Eritreans are peace-loving people. If they had a chance, they would be the first people to go back home, abandon their wealth and their comfortable life here to build their country. But our leaders, one leader, of course, there are not many leaders, is not listening. And I hope there will come a time where the leadership would realize that it is sleepwalking into a disaster.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mariama, for bringing us this week's audience reaction.
Well, thank you, Shaka, and wanted to do a quick shout out to my Eritrean friend, Twelde, whom I hope him and his family are tuned in and definitely watching this show. That will do it for today's social media segment. Just a reminder that we appreciate all the feedback, whether it's in social media form or using other means to communicate to us. Please keep them coming.